Before the world wakes, before the noise begins, a quiet decision is waiting to be made. This is not just another morning. It is a moment that can change everything. A moment where restlessness turns into hunger, where yesterday's weight can be released, and where a single prayer can ignite a lifelong fire. This story follows a journey from the first light of dawn to a faith tested by time, revealing how ordinary mornings become divine appointments. If you have ever felt empty, distracted, or called to something deeper, this is your invitation. Today is not random. Today is the day to chase after God with all your heart. Asked Benjamin L. Morning breaks not merely as a change in the sky, but as a moment charged with meaning, carrying a quiet urgency that often goes unnoticed. As the first light stretches across the horizon, the world remains still, suspended between rest and motion. Streets are silent, homes are dark, and most lives are paused in sleep. Yet within this calm lies a profound reality. The arrival of a new day is never accidental. It is an opening, a signal, and a summons. One that calls the human soul to attention before the noise of life begins. In these early hours, the soul stands at a crossroads. There is a familiar temptation to move mechanically into routine, repeating yesterday's patterns without thought or intention. Many awaken only in body, allowing their spirit to remain dormant, swept along by schedules, responsibilities, and endless distractions. But this morning presents another option, one that demands awareness and courage. The choice to awaken inwardly and recognize that God is near, present, and calling. Reports from lives shaped by faith consistently reveal a common truth. The moments before the world stirs are often the moments when God speaks most clearly. Without interruption, without performance, and without pressure, the heart becomes receptive. It is here in the quiet that conviction rises and clarity forms. This chapter marks the realization that silence is not empty. It is filled with opportunity, and today's silence carries a message meant to be received. What makes this morning different is not the sunrise itself, but the awareness that accompanies it. Today is not simply another date on the calendar, nor another opportunity to survive the hours ahead. It is a divine appointment, unseen yet intentional, waiting to be acknowledged. The light breaking through the darkness mirrors an internal invitation to step out of spiritual sleep and into purposeful awareness. Observers of spiritual discipline note that transformation often begins not with dramatic events, but with subtle decisions made in private. Choosing to pause, to listen, and to seek God before engaging the world reorders priorities. This moment at dawn becomes the foundation upon which the rest of the day will be built. Ignore it, and life continues on autopilot. Embrace it, and direction begins to change. As the sun continues its slow rise, the choice remains unresolved for many, but the invitation does not fade. The awakening at dawn stands as a defining moment, a threshold between routine and revelation. Chapter 1 closes not with answers, but with urgency, making it clear that what happens in these early moments will echo throughout the entire day, and perhaps far beyond it. As the dawn introduced begins to settle into morning, new details emerge from within the human heart. While the day has officially begun, many awaken carrying an invisible weight, a sense of restlessness that routine alone cannot explain. Reports from countless lives reveal a shared condition. Despite activity, progress, and outward motion, something remains unsettled inside. The awakening at dawn has exposed not peace, but a deeper hunger now demanding attention. This inner unrest does not arrive suddenly. It has been building quietly over time. It surfaces in moments of silence, in pauses between obligations, and especially in the early hours when distractions are few. The heart begins to ask difficult questions. Questions about meaning, direction, and purpose. These questions are not signs of weakness, but indicators of awareness. They signal that the soul is no longer content with surface-level living, and is beginning to recognize its deeper need for God. Witnesses to spiritual transformation often describe this stage as a turning point. After choosing awareness in the quiet of dawn, the heart becomes honest. It acknowledges emptiness where fulfillment was expected and fatigue where success once motivated. This chapter documents that honesty, revealing that restlessness is not the enemy. It is evidence that the soul was created for more than repetition and survival. The cry of the restless heart is rarely loud or dramatic. Instead, it is expressed through sighs, unspoken prayers, and moments of vulnerability few ever see. People continue their daily movements, yet inwardly they are searching. They long for peace that circumstances cannot provide and clarity that effort alone cannot produce. This internal tension grows stronger after the awakening, as the soul realizes it can no longer ignore what it feels. Faith observers note that this restlessness often pushes individuals toward God, even when they are unsure how to approach Him. The heart begins to reach outward and upward, sometimes in confusion, sometimes in desperation. It is not a polished prayer that emerges, but a raw appeal, a cry formed from need rather than language. This moment marks the transition from awareness to pursuit. Importantly, this cry does not go unnoticed. The outline of this journey emphasizes that God responds not to perfection, but to sincerity. The restless heart, though uncertain, is open. It is no longer numb. In spiritual terms, this openness is critical, because it creates space for divine interaction. What began as quiet awareness at dawn now intensifies into a longing that cannot be silenced. As the morning progresses, the contrast between outer motion and inner need becomes more pronounced. People move through their responsibilities, yet the heart continues to whisper. It asks for peace, direction, forgiveness, and reassurance. This chapter reports that such whispers are often the first true prayers of the day. Prayers that rise not from obligation, but from necessity. The drama of this moment lies in its tension. The heart stands between two options: to suppress the unrest and return to distraction, or to lean into it and seek God more intentionally. The cry itself becomes a signal, indicating that the soul is ready to move beyond routine faith into genuine relationship. This is not yet surrender, but it is preparation. Spiritual patterns show that many turn back at this stage, choosing comfort over confrontation. Yet those who continue forward describe this restlessness as the catalyst for change. The discomfort forces reflection, and reflection opens the door to transformation. The outline of this journey confirms that without this inner cry, pursuit remains shallow. The restless heart fully exposed. The awakening of dawn has led to awareness, and awareness has given birth to longing. The cry has been released, and it lingers in the air, unanswered but not ignored. What follows next will determine whether this longing fades, or becomes the beginning of wholehearted surrender. As the cry of the restless heart continues, a new and more difficult stage emerges. Awareness has been awakened, longing has been exposed, and now the source of that unrest begins to surface. Reports from personal faith journeys indicate that when the heart dares to seek God honestly, it inevitably encounters the weight of yesterday. Memories, regrets, failures, and wounds long buried but never healed. This chapter documents the moment when the soul realizes that pursuit cannot continue while the past is still being carried. The morning that began with quiet reflection now turns inward with intensity. The heart, once restless without explanation, starts identifying what has been holding it captive. Old decisions resurface. Unresolved guilt, bitterness, and disappointment rise to the surface, demanding attention. What once felt distant suddenly feels present, as if the light of dawn has exposed corners long kept in shadow. This is not coincidence, but confrontation. Observers of spiritual growth describe this phase as one of the most emotionally demanding. The desire to chase after God collides with the reality of accumulated burdens. Many want renewal without release, progress without surrender. Yet the outline of this journey makes it clear. God's presence cannot be fully embraced while yesterday still defines today. Letting go is no longer optional. It becomes necessary. Reveals that the past often disguises itself as identity. People do not merely remember their failures. They live under them. Mistakes become labels, wounds become walls, and regret becomes routine. As the heart reaches toward God, it begins to understand that holding on to these things has not protected it, but imprisoned it. The restlessness from chapter 2 now finds its explanation. It was the soul reacting to chains it was never meant to wear. In the quiet of the morning, without distractions to soften the truth, the decision becomes unavoidable. The heart must choose whether to cling to what is familiar or release it in faith. Reports from those who have walked this path show that surrender rarely feels dramatic. Instead, it feels frightening, vulnerable, and deeply personal. Letting go means trusting God with parts of life that have long been controlled by fear. The dramatic tension of this chapter lies in resistance. Even as the heart longs for freedom, it hesitates. Questions arise. Who will I be without my past? What if I release this pain and nothing changes? These internal debates reveal how deeply yesterday has shaped the present. Yet the outline emphasizes that true pursuit requires trust, not in outcomes, but in God's character. Spiritual analysts note that this moment often marks the first true act of faith. Not prayer spoken aloud, but surrender enacted inwardly. The heart begins to loosen its grip on resentment, shame, and regret, sometimes reluctantly, sometimes desperately. This is not instant healing, but it is a decisive step. The past is acknowledged, not denied, but it is no longer given authority. As this release begins, a subtle shift occurs. The weight that fueled restlessness starts to lift, even if only slightly. The heart does not yet feel complete peace, but it senses room to breathe. The morning light that once exposed pain now also illuminates possibility. This shift confirms the outline's progression. Awareness leads to longing, longing leads to surrender. Importantly, this chapter reports that letting go does not erase history. It redefines it. Yesterday no longer dictates today's direction. The heart learns that God does not ask for perfection, only honesty. Every burden released becomes space for something new to be formed. The pursuit of God gains clarity as the heart grows lighter. With a decisive moment, the past, once tightly held, is placed down. Perhaps trembling, perhaps incomplete, but intentional. The heart stands vulnerable yet open, no longer anchored to what was. The path forward is now visible, where the pursuit of God moves from release into wholehearted seeking. Following the release of yesterday's burdens, a noticeable shift takes place within the heart. What was once heavy now feels exposed, and with that exposure comes a new sense of responsibility. Reports indicate that surrender does not lead to passivity, but to action. Having laid down the past, the soul stands ready for its next directive. Documents the moment when letting go transforms into deliberate pursuit. The quiet morning, once marked by tension and confrontation, now becomes a space of intention. With fewer burdens to carry, the heart becomes alert, attentive, and expectant. No longer content with awareness alone, it begins to seek. Observers note that this is where faith moves from acknowledgement to engagement. The soul does not wait to be moved. It rises, choosing to pursue God with focus and resolve. This pursuit is not casual. It demands time, attention, and a reordering of priorities. Routine still exists, but it no longer leads. Instead, the heart begins its day with purpose, carving out space to listen, pray, and align itself with God's presence. Reports from those walking this path confirm that seeking God wholeheartedly requires intention, especially in a world filled with constant distraction. The dramatic element of lies in decision. The heart recognizes that half-hearted seeking will not sustain transformation. It must choose between convenience and commitment. This is not about emotion alone, but discipline. Rising to seek God becomes an act of defiance against complacency, signaling that faith is no longer an accessory but a foundation. As the pursuit deepens, the nature of prayer changes. No longer driven solely by need, prayer becomes dialogue. The heart listens as much as it speaks. Scripture, reflection, and stillness begin to shape understanding. Analysts of spiritual growth note that this stage often brings clarity. Not always answers, but direction. The soul starts to sense alignment with something greater than itself. Yet this also records resistance. Even after surrender, distractions attempt to reclaim attention. Thoughts wander, time pressures increase, and old habits resurface. The pursuit of God must now be protected. This tension reveals that wholehearted seeking is not a single choice, but a series of ongoing ones made daily, often moment by moment. The outline emphasizes that this pursuit marks a turning point. The heart is no longer reacting to restlessness or regret. It is actively moving toward God. This forward motion brings strength, even before circumstances change. The soul begins to understand that seeking God is not about controlling outcomes, but about staying close to the source of life. Witness accounts describe a growing sense of peace during this phase. Not because problems vanish, but because direction is established. The heart feels anchored. Morning prayer becomes a starting line rather than an afterthought. This pursuit sets the tone for everything that follows, reinforcing the idea that how the day begins shapes how it unfolds. Importantly, this chapter shows that seeking God wholeheartedly reshapes identity. The heart begins to see itself not as broken or burdened, but as chosen and called. Confidence grows, not in self, but in God's faithfulness. This internal shift fuels perseverance, preparing the soul for challenges ahead. With a heart fully engaged in pursuit, yesterday has been released, and today is embraced with intention. The soul is no longer wandering. It is moving forward with focus. The path leads toward confrontation, not with the past, but with the internal battles that arise when faith is put into action, setting the stage. As wholehearted pursuit takes root, new resistance emerges. Reports following the events indicate that seeking God with intention does not eliminate conflict. Instead, it exposes it. The heart that has risen to pursue now finds itself in a battle that is both subtle and relentless. Documents the internal struggle that begins when faith moves from decision into daily practice. The morning discipline established earlier quickly encounters opposition. Old habits resurface, distractions multiply, and familiar impulses push back against spiritual focus. Observers note that the flesh resists change, preferring comfort over conviction. What once seemed manageable now feels demanding, as the pursuit of God challenges long-standing patterns of thought and behavior. This battle is not visible to the outside world. Externally, life continues as normal, but inwardly, tension builds. The spirit longs for alignment with God, while the flesh seeks immediate satisfaction and control. This internal conflict creates moments of doubt and frustration, where the heart questions whether the pursuit is worth the effort required. Reports from those experiencing this stage reveal that fear often plays a central role. Fear of failure, fear of inconsistency, and fear of falling back into old ways begin to surface. The enemy of progress is not always sin, but discouragement highlights how subtle these attacks can be, targeting motivation rather than belief. Despite the pressure, the outline emphasizes that this struggle is a sign of growth, not defeat. The presence of conflict confirms that change is occurring. The heart is no longer passive. It is engaged. Morning prayer, once an invitation, now becomes a weapon. Used not to escape the battle, but to stand firm within it. The drama intensifies as choices become more frequent and more costly. Each decision, to pray or to rush, to trust or to worry, to obey or to delay, carries weight. Analysts of spiritual discipline note that consistency, not intensity, becomes the key factor in this chapter. Victory is found not in dramatic moments, but in repeated faithfulness. As the battle continues, the heart begins to recognize patterns. Certain thoughts, environments, and routines either strengthen the spirit or empower the flesh. This awareness becomes strategic. The pursuit of God evolves into a guarded commitment, where boundaries are set and priorities are protected. Importantly, this chapter records moments of failure alongside moments of resolve. Not every day ends in triumph, yet progress continues. The heart learns that setbacks do not cancel pursuit. Repentance, humility, and persistence become essential tools in navigating the conflict. Witness accounts confirm that over time, the balance begins to shift. The spirit grows stronger as it is consistently fed, while the flesh loses influence when denied authority. Peace does not arrive instantly, but resilience does. The heart becomes less reactive and more grounded. With the battle ongoing but no longer overwhelming, the heart remains in pursuit, aware of the conflict yet committed to the path forward. This tension prepares the way for a deeper encounter, one that moves beyond struggle and into intimacy, setting the stage. After the prolonged internal struggle documented, a significant development begins to emerge. Reports indicate that sustained pursuit, even amid conflict, leads to a shift in atmosphere. The battle between flesh and spirit does not disappear, but it creates hunger, an openness that draws the heart deeper. This chapter records the transition from striving to encountering, as the soul enters what many describe as the secret place. The secret place is not defined by location, but by intention. It is formed in moments intentionally guarded from noise and interruption. Observers note that those who persist through spiritual conflict often find themselves drawn to deeper stillness. Here, prayer becomes less about endurance and more about presence. The heart no longer seeks relief alone. It seeks God Himself. This encounter does not arrive with spectacle. There are no announcements, no outward signs that would draw attention. Instead, the shift is internal and unmistakable. The heart senses closeness, an awareness that it is no longer speaking into silence. This chapter reports that many experience peace for the first time since beginning the pursuit, not because every question is answered, but because God is felt near. Emotion plays a powerful role in this stage. Conviction, comfort, healing, and reassurance surface simultaneously. The heart is confronted with truth, yet covered in grace. Analysts of spiritual encounters emphasize that this balance is critical. God's presence exposes what needs change while strengthening the soul to endure it. As the encounter deepens, listening becomes as important as speaking. The heart grows attentive, recognizing subtle impressions and quiet direction. Scripture takes on new weight, and familiar words feel alive. Highlights how intimacy with God reshapes perception, making spiritual truths personal rather than theoretical. Importantly, the secret place offers refuge, not escape. The challenges documented earlier do not vanish, but their power diminishes. The heart leaves these moments strengthened rather than distracted. Reports confirm that even brief encounters produce lasting impact, altering how individuals respond to pressure throughout the day. The drama of this lies in contrast. After struggle and resistance, the soul experiences gentleness. Where discipline once felt heavy, obedience now feels purposeful. The heart realizes that the pursuit was not about proving devotion, but about creating space for connection. Witness accounts describe a renewed sense of identity emerging from these encounters. The heart no longer defines itself by past failure or present struggle, but by relationship. Confidence grows, not rooted in self-effort, but in God's nearness. This shift marks a critical point in the outline's progression. As these encounters continue, consistency replaces urgency. The heart no longer seeks God only out of need, but out of desire. Morning prayer transforms into a meeting place rather than a ritual. This change reinforces the foundation laid in earlier, solidifying the pursuit as a lifestyle. With the heart leaving the secret place changed. Not perfect, not finished, but strengthened and reassured. The encounter has prepared the soul for outward movement, carrying inward transformation into daily life, setting the stage where purpose and action begin to take form. Following the intimate encounters documented in the secret place, a noticeable transformation begins to surface in daily life. Reports indicate that time spent in God's presence does not end in stillness. It produces movement. The heart that was strengthened in private now carries that strength into the public rhythm of the day. Records the shift from inward renewal to outward direction, where purpose begins to take form. The peace gained proves to be more than emotional comfort. As the morning progresses, clarity replaces confusion. Decisions that once felt overwhelming now appear ordered. Observers note that when the heart is anchored in God's presence, priorities naturally realign. What once demanded attention loses its urgency, while what truly matters rises to the surface. This strength is not loud or forceful, but steady. It manifests in patience under pressure, restraint in moments of temptation, and confidence when facing uncertainty. The outline of this journey emphasizes that purpose is not discovered through ambition alone, but through alignment. The heart begins to recognize where it is meant to walk, and just as importantly, where it is meant to stop. Reports from individuals at this stage highlight a renewed sense of identity. No longer driven by comparison or fear, the heart walks with assurance. This confidence does not come from self-belief, but from trust formed in the secret place. Knowing God is near gives courage to act, speak, and move differently throughout the day. As strength grows, responsibility follows. The heart becomes aware that its choices now influence more than itself. Words carry weight, actions create impact, and integrity becomes essential. This chapter documents how purpose introduces accountability, not as pressure, but as privilege. Walking with God reshapes how one represents faith in everyday life. The drama intensifies as challenges arise. Purpose does not eliminate opposition. It often attracts it. Situations test whether the strength gained in prayer will hold under stress. Analysts note that this is where faith proves authentic. When peace remains steady despite disruption, the heart learns to respond rather than react. Importantly, this chapter reveals that purpose is not always dramatic or visible. Often it unfolds through ordinary obedience, showing kindness, choosing honesty, exercising patience. The outline reinforces that walking in purpose is less about platform and more about faithfulness. Small steps, taken consistently, define the path forward. Witness accounts describe a growing sense of fulfillment during this phase. While circumstances may remain imperfect, the heart feels aligned. The restless longing from earlier chapters is replaced by quiet assurance. Life no longer feels scattered. It feels directed. This confirms the progression of the journey, from awakening, to surrender, to pursuit, and now to action. As the day advances, the heart remains aware of its source. Strength is maintained not through effort alone, but through continued dependence on God. Brief prayers, moments of reflection, and inward trust sustain momentum. This ongoing connection ensures that purpose does not become performance. With the heart actively walking forward, strengthened and focused. What began at dawn has now shaped the entire day. The pursuit of God has produced direction, and direction has produced confidence. Yet the journey is not complete. Approaches, where this daily pursuit ignites into a lifelong calling, transforming faith into a lasting fire. In the aftermath of a life set on fire for God, new developments continue to unfold. Reports indicate that the greatest challenge now is not ignition, but continuation. Documents the reality that follows passion, the daily responsibility of living out the call that has been awakened. The fire established in the previous chapter does not remove the ordinary rhythms of life. Instead, it redefines them. Each new morning becomes a test of commitment. The same dawn that once sparked awakening now asks a recurring question. Will the pursuit remain intentional, or will it fade into memory? Observers note that consistency is where many journeys are ultimately decided. The heart must choose again and again to respond to God's call not only in moments of inspiration, but in routine and repetition. This chapter reveals that living the call requires vigilance. Distractions return, pressures increase, and responsibilities multiply. Unlike earlier stages, these challenges are subtle. They do not attack faith directly, but slowly compete for attention. The heart learns that spiritual fire must be tended daily, or it risks dimming under the weight of familiarity. Reports from individuals walking this stage highlight a shift in motivation. Obedience is no longer driven by emotion, but by conviction. Prayer may feel quieter, worship less dramatic, yet devotion becomes deeper. This is where faith matures, when the heart seeks God not because it feels compelled, but because it has chosen Him as its foundation. The drama of this chapter lies in perseverance. The call of God is no longer new, but it remains demanding. The heart must integrate faith into decisions, relationships, work, and conflict. There is no separation between sacred and ordinary moments. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to reflect what has been formed in the secret place. Analysts of spiritual growth note that this stage often determines long-term impact. Passion may inspire others briefly, but endurance shapes legacy. The heart begins to understand that chasing after God wholeheartedly is not about intensity alone, but about faithfulness over time. Small acts of obedience gain eternal significance. Importantly, this chapter documents renewed dependence on God. The heart recognizes that sustaining the call cannot be done through strength alone. Grace becomes essential. Failures may still occur, but they no longer lead to retreat. Repentance, humility, and returning to God quickly become part of the rhythm of life. Witness accounts describe a growing sense of quiet authority. Without striving for recognition, the life aligned with God begins to influence its surroundings. Peace becomes noticeable, wisdom becomes evident, and stability becomes attractive. This influence flows naturally from a heart anchored in daily pursuit. As days turn into seasons, the heart learns to measure success differently. Progress is no longer defined by visible results, but by faithfulness to the call. The outline of the journey reaches full maturity here. Awakening led to pursuit, pursuit led to transformation, and transformation now leads to steadfast living. With a powerful continuation rather than a conclusion. The call that began at dawn remains alive in every new morning. The heart stands committed, not perfect, not finished, but faithful. The story continues forward, carried by daily choices to rise, seek, and walk with God anew. As the journey advances beyond the discipline of daily mornings described, new reports reveal a crucial development. How the heart finishes the day now becomes just as important as how it begins. The call that is lived out every morning must be reviewed, strengthened, and reaffirmed by night. This chapter documents the transition from daily pursuit into daily reflection, where faith is tested by endurance rather than initiation. Throughout the day, the heart has carried the fire into decisions, conversations, and challenges. Now, as evening approaches, the noise of activity fades and truth becomes clearer. Observers note that this is often when the heart takes honest inventory. What was done in alignment with God's call, and what was compromised by distraction or fatigue. The flame does not vanish at night, but it reveals its true strength. This chapter highlights a growing maturity in faith. Instead of hiding mistakes or justifying weakness, the heart learns to return to God with transparency. Evening reflection becomes an extension of morning pursuit. Prayer shifts from request to review, from asking for direction to seeking refinement. The relationship deepens as honesty replaces performance. The drama of this stage lies in confrontation with self. The heart recognizes patterns. Moments where it stood firm and moments where it hesitated. Rather than leading to condemnation, this awareness produces growth. Analysts of spiritual formation emphasize that progress accelerates when reflection is paired with grace. The fire is not threatened by honesty. It is fueled by it. Reports indicate that gratitude becomes central in this chapter. The heart begins to acknowledge not only victories, but protection, guidance, and unseen help throughout the day. Gratitude strengthens memory, reminding the soul that God was present even when His presence was not immediately felt. This recognition reinforces trust for the days ahead. As night deepens, rest itself becomes an act of faith. The heart releases control, believing that God continues His work beyond human effort. This surrender marks a significant evolution from earlier chapters, where striving dominated the pursuit. Now trust defines it. Rest no longer signals disengagement, but confidence in God's faithfulness. Importantly, this chapter records the preservation of the flame. Ending the day in God's presence prevents burnout and spiritual erosion. The fire is covered, protected, and prepared for the next morning. Observers note that those who finish the day well awaken with clarity rather than exhaustion. The outline of the journey reaches a new layer here. Chasing after God wholeheartedly is no longer about moments, but rhythm. Morning ignites the flame, the day carries it forward, and night secures it. This rhythm transforms faith from effort into lifestyle. Witness accounts describe a deepening peace at this stage. The heart is no longer anxious about tomorrow because it has learned to trust today with God. Confidence grows not from control, but from consistency in returning to Him at every stage of the day. With a powerful realization, the pursuit of God is sustained not only by how one begins, but by how one ends. As the heart rests, the flame remains alive, quiet, steady, and ready. Tomorrow's dawn will come, and when it does, the pursuit will continue, stronger than before. As the cycle of daily pursuit and nightly reflection becomes firmly established, new developments emerge beyond the individual heart. Reports following indicate that a life consistently aligned with God does not remain isolated. The flame that was guarded through reflection now begins to illuminate others. This chapter documents the outward expansion of a faith that has matured through discipline, rhythm, and endurance. Observers note that this influence is rarely intentional at first. The heart does not seek recognition or impact. It simply lives faithfully. Yet consistency produces credibility. Words spoken carry greater weight, reactions reveal calm under pressure, and decisions reflect integrity. Those nearby begin to notice that something is different. Not forced, not dramatic, but steady and grounded. This chapter highlights a critical transition in the journey's outline. What began as personal awakening has now become communal effect. The pursuit of God, once driven by inner restlessness, now answers the quiet questions of others. Faith becomes visible not through preaching, but through presence. The life shaped by daily surrender becomes a silent testimony. The drama of this stage lies in responsibility. The heart becomes aware that its choices now echo beyond itself. Moments of patience, forgiveness, and courage are observed and remembered. Analysts of spiritual influence note that this awareness deepens humility. The heart understands that the fire it carries is not its own creation, but a trust to be steward. Reports also reveal moments of tension. Being observed introduces pressure. The temptation to perform, to appear consistent rather than remain honest, grows stronger. This chapter records how the heart must return to the same foundations established earlier. Morning pursuit and nightly reflection, to guard against hypocrisy. Authenticity becomes essential. As interactions increase, opportunities for encouragement and guidance naturally arise. Conversations deepen. Questions are asked. The heart that once searched now listens. This chapter documents how wisdom gained in the secret place becomes practical help for others, offered not as answers, but as shared experience. Importantly, this outward influence does not replace inward dependence. The outline makes clear that impact without intimacy leads to exhaustion. The heart must continually return to God as its source. Those who sustain influence are those who refuse to neglect the private pursuit that ignited the fire in the first place. Witness accounts describe a surprising effect at this stage: renewed passion. Seeing others encouraged reignites gratitude and purpose. The journey no longer feels solitary. Faith becomes shared, strengthening resolve and reinforcing the value of consistency. The flame grows brighter, not by spreading thin, but by multiplying. As days and seasons continue, the heart recognizes that awakening others is not about results, but faithfulness. Some respond, others observe quietly, and some resist entirely. Emphasizes that the outcome belongs to God. The call remains the same: to live truthfully, humbly, and steadily. Closes with a powerful confirmation of the journey's progression. A life that begins with chasing after God wholeheartedly does not end in isolation. Through discipline, reflection, and perseverance, it becomes a beacon. The flame that was once carefully guarded now shines outward, preparing the way for the next stage, where legacy and lasting impact begin to take shape. As the influence described continues to expand, new reports point to a deeper development. One that reaches beyond immediate impact and into lasting legacy. What began as personal awakening and grew into communal influence now matures into something enduring. Documents the transition from being noticed in the present to shaping the future through faithfulness lived over time. Observers note that legacy is rarely intentional at first. The heart does not set out to be remembered. It sets out to be obedient. Yet repetition forms patterns, and patterns shape generations. Daily pursuit, once a private discipline, now leaves traces in conversations, decisions, and values passed on quietly. The fire that once illuminated nearby lives begins to burn beyond visible reach. This chapter highlights a sobering realization. Moments pass, but character remains. The dramatic awakenings of earlier chapters gave way to consistency, and consistency now defines remembrance. Analysts of spiritual formation emphasize that legacy is not built on peak experiences, but on steady devotion maintained when no one is watching. Reports indicate that those walking this stage become increasingly aware of time. Seasons change, roles shift, and opportunities narrow or expand. Rather than creating urgency, this awareness brings clarity. The heart learns to invest intentionally, choosing depth over speed, truth over popularity, and faithfulness over recognition. The drama of this chapter lies in quiet sacrifice. Saying no becomes as important as saying yes. The heart protects what matters most, knowing that every decision reinforces the path it leaves behind. This restraint is not loss, but wisdom, shaped by the journey that began at dawn many chapters earlier. Importantly, this stage deepens humility. The heart understands that legacy is not control over outcomes, but trust in God's continuation. Seeds are planted without certainty of harvest. Influence is released rather than managed. This surrender reflects the same posture first learned when letting go of yesterday. Witness accounts describe a profound peace at this stage. The striving of early pursuit has been replaced by assurance. The heart rests in knowing that obedience, offered consistently, is enough. Life feels aligned not only with purpose, but with eternity. As others begin to walk paths shaped by this example, the heart responds not with pride, but gratitude. The outline of the journey becomes visible in retrospect. Awakening led to pursuit, pursuit to transformation, transformation to influence, and influence now to legacy. The story reveals its full arc. This chapter also records a renewed call to remain faithful to the end. Legacy is not sealed by one season, but by endurance. The heart understands that the same God who called it at dawn remains present at every stage, asking for the same thing: wholehearted devotion. Closes with a powerful affirmation. Chasing after God with all the heart does more than change a day or a life. It leaves a mark that continues beyond the moment. The flame, once sparked in silence, now burns through time itself, carried forward by lives shaped, strengthened, and awakened along the way.